So if I can't use synthetic fertilizer, what the heck can I use? Is a pretty common question when people first hear about some of the organic regulations. Feeding a crop organically is one of the top concerns we hear from farmers who are considering transition. You may have the same question: how can I possibly provide enough nitrogen to a corn crop without using synthetic inputs? Well, I've got some good news. Organic farms have a heavy toolbox to build up soil fertility and grow healthy, productive crops. But feeding an organic crop does come with its challenges. Feeding the soil, which organics is all about, is harder and will take more time than just feeding the crop a highly soluble NPK. Timing, planning, and patience are the keys. Organic fertility comes from two main sources: the fertility you grow on the farm and the fertility you purchase from off-farm inputs. By far, the most important source of fertility is what a farmer grows themselves. A well-designed crop rotation produces nitrogen through leguminous cash crops, cover crops, and those green manure plowdowns. It will also balance crop nutrition needs over time. Each rotation phase that fixes nitrogen or adds significant organic matter is a spin of the flywheel that will keep yields high and profits healthy. A sequence of crops that balances heavy feeders with light feeders and nitrogen fixers with nitrogen users will help to conserve and manage nutrient availability for your cash crop. Cover crops, a staple of any good rotation, can also hold nutrients in place and then release them when terminated or incorporated into the soil. Once you grow that fertility, though, you'll want to hang on to it. Be wary of shipping too much biomass off your farm. Shipping hay, or even straw, depending on the region, can leave you hurting for nutrients. Nutrients that can be pretty costly and time-consuming to get back. Alfalfa can be a really important keystone in any organic rotation, but it's still important to pause and think critically about the benefits or drawbacks before selling off forages from your organic operation. Those lost nutrients can be more valuable than the sale price of just that bale of hay. The second main source of fertility is from off-farm inputs. This will most often mean animal manures, compost, or mined minerals. But adding fertility in organics can be expensive, which is one of the many reasons to focus on growing fertility instead of buying it. For example, the shipping cost of compost frequently eclipses the actual cost of the compost itself. Inputs also cost time, meaning that organic fertilizers are slow to release with low concentrations of nutrients. The bang for your buck can be more of a low hum for your dollar, maybe pops for your pennies. Since we're feeding the soil and not the crop, most organic inputs rely on soil life to convert them into crop-available forms. A vibrant, below-ground bioherd, as opposed to those hoofed animals that are on top, can act as a buffer that reduces risks of under or over fertilizing. Once soil fertility and nutrient cycling has been established in organic rotation, some producers find that mineral amendments are rarely necessary. Instead, fertility is managed by maximizing soil nutrient cycling and the continued spinning of that flywheel. Organic farmers focus more on conserving nutrients, growing their own nitrogen, and judiciously applying manures. Managing organic fertility is sometimes complex. Every choice you make will have an effect on non-target parts of the system. For example, applying too much nitrogen can make your weed management more difficult by creating an early advantage for those hungry weed species. Also, excess nutrition, especially at the wrong point in the life cycle of the crop, can lead to issues such as lodging in small grains. Relying on soil biology to convert nutrients to plant-available forms makes providing the proper amount at the right time a little difficult to predict. And utilizing practices that build soil health in the long run can entail short-term yield trade-offs. This is a big deal. High yield is often seen as the measure of success for farmers. Yield equals profit, right? Well, not necessarily. The input cost to achieve high yields can sometimes lead to expenses outpacing revenue. So let's look at how to avoid going broke chasing that yield. As I described earlier, the cost of organic fertilizer can be pretty high, and it's not the most effective way to provide nutrients to the crop. Organic farming isn't about input substitution. It's about playing the long game. Leveraging soil organic matter for fertility helps keep costs down and improves crop health. Let's jump into some real-world examples of what this type of soil fertility management looks like on the farm level.
I had some huge concerns going in about nutrient deficiency and how am I going to grow a crop without using synthetic fertilizer? And I knew, there would be yield drag in implementing the cover crops. I knew for a few years I would lose yield. And a couple years in, the yield started kind of coming back up. And it was like, how am I growing this crop without these synthetic fertilizers? Like, I thought I would be here, and we're up here, we're catching to where we were conventionally. We don't buy any organic approved fertilizers, and that's one thing that makes my inspection go really quick, because it's like, what are your organic approved substances? If you not like next part,
Yeah. Like clover, when we put clover down, normally, you'll fix 60 to 100 pounds of N. I've seen it fix up to 280 pounds of N, a good stand of clover. That's not the normal, that's an exception. But, you can figure on 60 to 100 pounds of N.
And that's one thing my dad had said years ago, and it stands true. I can do way more with money spent in cover crop seed than I can with any input we put out there. And I think that's completely true,
We've never bought confinement chicken litter. I know it's the stuff that makes organic farms go. I know a lot of farmers around us that that's the one thing they buy every year. Where we have brought in manure, it's usually been composted dairy manure from the area.
We've got access to a layer manure. I've been relying on that, not overusing it, trying to use as little as I can, but at the same time, I was using a fair amount of it the past few years because I saw, what was coming. What's here now is supply is tight, prices are high.
We spread manure. So we own a dairy. We have access to dairy manure. We also have some hog barns near us, so we can have access to some pig manure. And we have brought in some turkey and chicken litter as well in the past. And we'll use those primarily on corn, just to give it mostly the nitrogen and P and K that it needs. But we get most of our fertility from manures and crop rotation and putting green matter back in the soil.
Now there's also organic farmers that simply think that they can substitute manure for urea or anhydrous, and to be honest, those are the farmers that really struggle. That you've got to think longer term and think about, growing your own nitrogen, using that rotation to your advantage versus just a corn and bean rotation with high dollars of inputs.
And then we see everything in between, from that very low input approach to a high input, high management approach, and variations in between.
Having not come from the conventional agricultural world, that I just know from reputation, not from experience, is very input driven. When I go to organic farm conferences, there's all the booths and all the companies and selling all of the things that you can spray or pour or whatever, broadcast over your fields. I guess it appeals more to a farmer that's used to putting stuff on the fields through the year at different growth points and all this kind of, and I never did that.
We do play with some inputs with the planter on corn, popcorn, even soybeans, to bring a little bit of fertility right there, placed close to the seed or in furrow. But generally speaking, we're not pushing really hard on those inputs.
That's the one place where we have done some targeted inputs, is by retrofitting our row crop planter and actually grain drills for liquid, so that we can do biologicals in furrow. Because it makes sense to me, if you're going to do that, as opposed to doing foliars and things like that, that really be strategic, be surgical, put it right where the seed is.
I remember one years ago, I bought chili and nitrate, put it on 7 different crops. I couldn't tell the difference on none of them. Foliar fish, I applied it, when it was growing, the crops, I put it on 7 different crops. I couldn't see the difference on none of them. So I don't know if I got bad stuff or what, but all I can tell you is that what I found over the years, let your soil grow its own fertility by different rotations. Alfalfa in your rotation, different legumes, sweet clover in your rotation.
One piece of it that I think is really important to us is the livestock component. And I think that's really what's going to unlock the soil building and soil health potential of this farm, is when we're not exporting hay because we have enough mouths to feed here, that we can grow the perennial legumes for their fertility and soil structure benefits and limited tillage benefits, but not be exporting all that carbon and nutrients off to other farms. And then also having the fertility from the livestock, grazing cover crops in crop fields.
One of the main drivers of increased profitability for organic farms is reducing reliance on off-farm inputs by improving nutrient cycling in the soil. Playing the long game with an investment in a cover crop for 1 year can lead to many years of reduced fertility input costs that more than make up for the seed and planting costs of that cover crop. Planning and executing a whole rotation leads to long-term profitability gains. In the next lesson, we'll dive deeper into the specifics of growing and adding fertility on an organic farm.